Have you ever had that feeling like when a project just totally blows its budget?
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe like that deadline is just like right around the corner and you're nowhere near it.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's a bad feeling. So that's exactly why we're diving in today to all the tools that you need to really take control of your projects.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about some really important project management ideas.
Yeah, and these are really practical things that you can use today.
Yeah.
And they all come from this one really useful document that we're going to break down.
That's right.
It's like your cheat sheet to being a project management pro.
Yeah.
But we're not going to go super deep. We're not trying to get you certified or anything like that.
Right.
This is really just for, everyday use.
Right.
So we'll start with a technique that I think is really cool, and it helps you get real about costs.
Okay, sounds good.
It's called three-point estimation. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so what is it all about?
It's basically about recognizing that, like you were saying, projects almost never go exactly as planned.
Right.
Like there's always some uncertainty.
Of course.
So three-point estimation helps us plan for those things that we don't see coming by considering, not just one cost, but 3 different possible cost scenarios.
Okay, so instead of crossing our fingers and hoping for the best,
Right.
we're actually looking at like the best case, the most likely case, and the worst case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the optimistic scenario, that's like the dream, everything goes perfectly, no delays, no surprise costs. Then there's the most likely scenario. That's the one that, based on our experience, is probably what's going to happen. And then there's that pessimistic one where we have to think about all those risks and what could go wrong.
So like, if I'm renovating my bathroom and I think, oh no, what if we find termites?
Right, exactly.
It's better to be prepared than to be totally shocked, right?
Absolutely.
So how do we actually use these 3 points?
So we take those 3 points and we don't just randomly guess. We actually plug them into formulas to make distributions.
Distributions, what are those?
Yeah, so there's 2 main ones that we use, triangular and beta or PERT.
Okay, now this is where I start to get a little intimidated. Do I need like a math degree for this?
No, not at all. Don't worry. It's really just about thinking about different ways to weigh those 3 estimates that we talked about.
Yeah.
The triangular distribution, it's pretty simple. It's just an average. So each of those scenarios gets the same weight per, or the beta distribution. It puts more emphasis on that most likely estimate. So it's a good choice for projects where there's, a bigger chance of something unexpected happening.
So for my bathroom renovation where there's a real possibility of termites,
Mm-hmm.
PERT would probably be the way to go because it gives me a more realistic cost range.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it factors in all those unknowns.
Right.
This is making me feel a lot more confident about tackling my next project already. But before we move on, there's another really powerful tool that we should talk about, and that's Earned Value Management, or EVM.
Yeah, EVM is great because it goes beyond just keeping track of what you're spending. It's like having a dashboard that tells you if you're actually getting what you plan for.
So it's not just about the money, it's about connecting that money to the actual work that's being done.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, listening.
So EVM has these 3 main parts: planned value, PV, actual cost, AC, and earned value, EV.
Okay, break those down for me.
Okay, so planned value, that's the budgeted cost of the work that's scheduled for a certain period of time. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like your project roadmap in terms of the budget and the timeline. Then actual cost is, well, pretty simple. It's just what you've actually spent so far.
Okay, makes sense.
And then earned value, this is where it gets really interesting. This is the value of the work that's actually been completed, and it's measured against what you plan to spend.
So like if I plan to spend $5,000 on framing my house this week, but I only got half of it done,
Right.
then my earned value would only be $2,500.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you're getting it. EVM helps you see if the progress you're making is actually matching up with the money that you're spending. So it's like a reality check for your project's financial health.
I like that. It's like checking your investments, but for your project.
Exactly.
I'm already seeing how EVM can help me stay on top of things and avoid those budget disasters.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? Our source material actually has a whole EVM calculation example that we can walk through.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Okay, so it uses this project with 2 tasks. Task 1 has a planned value of $10,000 and it's 50% complete.
Got it.
Task 2 has a planned value of $8,000 and it's 75% complete. So to figure out the earned value for each task, we just multiply that planned value by the percentage that's complete.
Okay, so for task 1, the EV would be $5,000.
Right.
Because 10,000 times 50% is 5,000.
Exactly. And for task 2, it would be $6,000.
Because 8,000 times 75% is 6,000.
You got it. And then to get the total earned value for the whole project, you just add up the EVs for both tasks.
So that would be $11,000. This is fascinating. I can already see how this could be so useful in so many different situations.
It really is. And there's even more to EVM. We can use it to figure out things like variances and performance indexes, which give us an even better understanding of how our project is doing.
Okay, well, I can't wait to learn more about that.
We'll definitely dive into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, sounds good.
So we were just talking about how powerful earned value management can be. Like you said, it's like having X-ray vision into our project budget.
Yeah, it is.
Hmm.
But now that we have all these numbers like planned value and actual cost and earned value, what do we actually do with them? How do they help us, make decisions about our project?
Right. Well, that's where variance and performance indexes come in. They're like the signals that tell us whether our project is on track or if it's starting to go off the rails.
Okay, so how do we read these signals? What should we be looking at first?
Let's start with schedule variance, or SV. It's a pretty simple metric, but it tells us if we're ahead of schedule or behind schedule.
Okay, and how do we calculate that?
We just take the earned value and subtract the planned value.
Okay, so if my earned value is higher than my planned value, that means I've gotten more done than I expected, right? That's a good thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A positive SV means you're ahead of schedule. Give yourself a high five. But if your SV is negative, that means you're behind schedule, and it's time to figure out why.
Ah, so that's how we know if we need to maybe adjust our timeline or get some extra help.
Yeah.
Now, what about cost variance? I have a feeling this is another important one.
You bet. Cost variance, or CV, tells us if we're over budget or under budget. And to calculate that, we just subtract the actual cost from the earned value.
Okay, so let me see if I got this. If my CV is positive, meaning my earned value is higher than my actual cost, that means I'm under budget.
You got it. A positive CV is definitely something to celebrate. It means you're getting more value for your money than you planned. But if your CV is negative, that means you're spending more than you thought you would, and it's time to start looking at your expenses more closely.
So SV is all about the schedule, and CV is all about the budget. Are there any other signals we should be paying attention to?
Yes, definitely. We should talk about performance indexes. The Schedule Performance Index, SPI, and the Cost Performance Index, CPI, give us an even better idea of how efficient our project is.
Okay, I'm all ears. How do we calculate those?
So SPI is just the earned value divided by the planned value. A value greater than 1 means we're getting work done faster than we planned, and a value less than 1 means we're falling behind.
So if my SPI is like 1.2, that means I'm doing great. I'm 20% ahead of schedule. And if it's 0.8, I'm hitting some roadblocks and I need to speed things up.
You're exactly right. And then the Cost Performance Index, or CPI, it works in a similar way. You divide the earned value by the actual cost.
So CPI greater than 1 means I'm getting more bang for my buck. I'm spending less than planned for the value that we've created.
Exactly. And a CPR less than 1 means we're spending more than we should be for the work that we've actually completed.
So if my CPI is like 0.9, I'm a little over budget. But if it drops down to like 0.7, it's time to panic and figure out where the money's going.
Right.
These indexes are like little gauges on our project dashboard.
They really are.
They give us a quick snapshot of how things are going overall.
Exactly. And speaking of looking ahead, there's another powerful tool we can use in project management. Forecasting.
Ooh, forecasting.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. Is it like predicting the future of our project?
It kind of is, yeah. We use our current project data to make predictions about what's going to happen in the future. Things like, when is this project going to be finished? How much is it really going to cost? Are we going to meet our goals?
So it's like having a crystal ball, but instead of magic, we're using data and trends to figure out what's coming next.
Right, exactly.
So what are the key parts of forecasting?
There are 3 main components: estimate at completion, EAC, estimate to complete, ETC, and to complete performance index, TCPI.
Okay, I'm going to need you to break those down for me, because those are some pretty intimidating acronyms.
Okay, no problem. Let's start with EAC, or estimate at completion. This is our best guess about what the total project cost is going to be when it's all finished. So it's basically saying, okay, based on what's happened so far, this is what we think the final bill is going to be.
So how do we calculate this magical number?
Well, there are actually a few different ways to do it, depending on the situation and how confident we are in our current performance.
Yeah.
One way is to just use the original budgeted rate, so we're assuming that the project is going to continue at the same pace that we planned for.
That seems pretty optimistic, though. What if we've already run into some problems and things aren't going exactly according to plan?
Right, you're right. That's where those other approaches come in. We can actively factor in our current performance by using the CPI. So if our CPI is less than 1, which means we're over budget, then this method is going to give us a higher EAC than our original budget.
So we're basically adjusting our expectations based on what's actually happening.
Right. And if we want to consider both schedule and cost performance, we can use a combination of the SPI and the CPI to calculate the EAC. This gives us an even more complete picture because it takes into account both time and money.
That seems like the most realistic approach, especially if we've had some ups and downs with both the schedule and the budget.
Exactly.
Now, what about those other parts of forecasting, ETC and PCPI?
Okay, so ETC, or estimate to complete, is pretty simple. It just tells us how much more money we're probably going to need to spend to finish the project. We calculate it by taking the budget at completion, which is the total planned budget for the project, and subtracting the earned value.
So if my budget at completion was $100,000 and we've already earned $60,000 worth of value, then our ETC would be $40,000.
Right.
That's the amount of money that's left to spend to get to the finish line.
Exactly. Now, TCPI, or to Complete Performance Index, this is where things get interesting. This tells us how efficiently we need to manage our costs from this point on if we want to stay within our budget.
Okay, this sounds important. How do we calculate it?
Well, we divide the remaining work, which is the budget at completion minus the earned value, by the remaining budget. We can base this calculation on either the original budget or the forecasted EAC, depending on which one makes more sense for our current situation.
So if my TCPI is greater than 1, that means I need to really tighten the purse strings and be more careful with my spending if I want to hit my budget targets.
You got it. A TCPI greater than 1 means you need to improve your cost performance to stay on track. But if your TCPI is less than 1, you actually have a little bit of wiggle room and more flexibility with the rest of your budget.
This is so helpful. It's like having a financial GPS for our project, guiding us towards the finish line.
Exactly. It helps us stay ahead of the game. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll talk about another really important technique, variance analysis. This is what helps us figure out why those project deviations happen in the first place.
Okay, variance analysis.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're going to be project management detectives.
That's right.
I can't wait. Okay, so we're back, and we've covered so much ground already, from three-point estimation to earned value management and even forecasting. I feel like we're really getting a handle on this project management thing.
Yeah, we've given you a lot of tools to work with, but there's one more essential technique that we need to talk about, variance analysis.
All right, I'm ready to put on my detective hat. What is variance analysis all about?
It's about understanding the why behind those variances that we've been calculating. Why are we ahead of schedule or behind schedule? Why are we over budget or under budget? Variance analysis helps us figure out the root causes of those deviations so we can actually do something about them.
So it's not just about looking at the numbers, but actually digging deeper and understanding what they're telling us.
Exactly. It's like being a financial archaeologist, carefully excavating the layers of our project to figure out what's driving those differences between what we planned and what's actually happening.
I like that image. So how do we actually approach variance analysis? Where do we begin?
Well, the first step is calculating our schedule variance, SV, and our cost variance, CV, which we already know how to do.
Right. SV tells us if we're on schedule or not, and CV tells us if we're on budget or not.
Exactly. Once we have those numbers, we can start looking for patterns and try to identify what factors are contributing to those variances.
So if we have a negative SV, meaning we're behind schedule, we might look into things like unexpected delays or problems with resource availability or even scope creep, which is when the project requirements start to grow beyond what we originally planned.
Right, and if we have a negative CV, meaning we're over budget, then we might look at things like, were our cost estimates accurate? Or have prices for materials gone up unexpectedly? Or are we just not using our resources efficiently?
It sounds like variance analysis is all about asking the right questions and then following those clues to really understand what's going on.
It is. It's about connecting those numbers to the real-world events that are affecting our project. So let's say, for example, we're managing a software development project, and our variance analysis shows that there's a big schedule delay.
Oh, that's never good.
No, it's not. So we dig a little deeper and we find out that the delay is happening because a really important team member got pulled onto another project.
The dreaded resource conflict.
Exactly. But now that we know the root cause, we can take steps to fix it. Maybe we can negotiate to get that team member back, or bring in some extra help, or even adjust the schedule to make up for the lost time.
So variance analysis isn't about placing blame or dwelling on the negative. It's about empowering us to make changes and get our project back on course.
Absolutely. It's about turning data into insights and then turning those insights into action.
This is so helpful. I can see how variance analysis can really make a difference in managing projects effectively.
It's a really important skill for any project manager. And our source material actually covers a few more financial formulas that are important to understand in project management.
Oh, perfect. Let's wrap up our deep dive by taking a quick look at those.
Okay, so first up, we have net present value, or NPV. This formula helps us determine the profitability of a project by considering the time value of money.
Time value of money. What does that mean?
It means that a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow because you can invest that dollar today and earn a return on it over time.
Ah, so we're factoring in the potential earning power of money over the entire life of the project?
Exactly. NPV calculates the present value of all those future cash flows, the expected revenues and costs, and then subtracts the initial investment.
So if the NPV is positive, that means the project is expected to make more money than we put in, even after we account for the time value of money.
Exactly. A positive NPV is a good sign that a project is worth doing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What other financial metrics should we be aware of?
We also have formulas for calculating profit, and profit is simply the difference between revenue and costs, and profit margin expresses that profit as a percentage of revenue.
So a higher profit margin generally means a more profitable project.
Right. It means that for every dollar of revenue, the project is keeping a bigger chunk as profit.
Now, what about return on investment, or ROI? I hear that term all the time, but I'm not always sure what it really means.
ROI measures the gain or loss generated on an investment compared to how much money was invested. So it's a way to assess how efficient an investment is.
So a high ROI means we're getting a good return for our money.
Right. It means the project is generating a good profit relative to the initial investment.
Okay, that one makes sense. What about internal rate of return, or IRR? That one sounds a little more complicated.
It is a bit more technical. IRR is basically the discount rate that makes the NPV of a project equal to zero. It's the rate of return that the project is expected to generate.
So a higher IRR is generally seen as a better investment.
Exactly. It means the project is expected to yield a higher return compared to other investment opportunities.
Okay, I think I'm starting to understand these financial metrics. Are there any others we should know about?
Yeah, there's also the payback period. This tells us how long it will take for an investment to generate enough cash flow to cover the initial cost.
So a shorter payback period is better.
Right. It means you'll get your money back faster.
Makes sense. Are there any other financial formulas that are really important for project management?
There are also future value and present value calculations. These formulas help us understand how the value of money changes over time because of things like interest and inflation.
Wow, we've covered so much of this deep dive. We've learned about three-point estimation earned, value management, forecasting, variance analysis, and all sorts of important financial formulas. I feel like I've leveled up my project management skills.
You have. You've got the knowledge and the tools to manage projects more effectively, make smarter decisions, and increase your chances of success.
I'm feeling ready to tackle any project that comes my way. But I also want to make sure our listeners know that this deep dive was just the beginning. There's a whole world of project management knowledge out there.
Absolutely. Project management is always evolving, and the best project managers are always learning.
So, to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to take these concepts and apply them to your own projects. Keep learning, keep growing, and never be afraid to ask questions.
And if you're looking to learn even more about project management, be sure to check out the amazing resources from London HeartbeatsZ Academy in the UK.
They have over 150 popular courses, and they offer free, regular updates on their social media channels like Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube.
It's a really great resource for anyone who wants to dive deeper into the world of project management.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the essentials of project management. We hope you enjoyed it and that you feel empowered to take your project management skills to the next level.
Until next time, happy project managing.